Good evening, everyone. I'd like to introduce myself. I am Catherine Read. Some people call me Mayor because I'm also the mayor. Tonight we have a distinguished guest, Carl Setzer, who is running for Congress in Ohio's 14th Congressional District. So history is a very interesting thing, and most people don't even know the history of their own state, much less someone else's. But the thing to note about Ohio is that Ohio is known for its moral courage, its fortitude, its activism. It is the home of fighters. In 1802, Ohio adopted a constitution that prohibited slavery. In 1802. That's 26 years. 26 years after our country said we were a sovereign nation, Ohio said there will not be slavery in Ohio. It wasn't until 1865 that the 13th Amendment outlawed and abolished slavery everywhere in the United States. So do the math between 1802 and 1865, and that is how progressive Ohio was. Oberlin College was founded there in 1833, the first college to admit both women and African Americans. There were huge numbers of Ohioans who fought for the Union. Huge numbers. And it was to preserve the Union. But between 1865, when the 13th Amendment abolished slavery, and 2025, a lot of things happened. Donald Trump began his first year of his second term as president, and Ohio redistricted its maps in 2025. So Carl Setzer didn't just drop out of the sky. Obviously, there's a reason that he's here. And we want for him to tell us what it meant when Ohio redistricted the state that he was born and raised in, and what motivated him to put his hat in the ring as a first-time candidate to represent this very unique district. But let's start, first of all, what is the connection between you and former council member John Staley?
Well, first of all, thank you, Mayor Read. The reason why I'm in this room and the reason why I'm talking to all of you tonight is literally John Staley. And so I met John Staley 21 years ago when both of us were wide-eyed optimists with slightly different worldviews that thought, you know what, let's go to graduate school at the University of Pittsburgh and let's learn how to save America and let's learn how to make the world a better place. And his optimism and his influence on my life has been nothing but positive ever since, to the point of it being annoying sometimes. And one of those annoying things about John is John doesn't let you quit on yourself, and John holds you to a high standard. But he does it with that infectious grin and with a lot of very encouraging words in between. So thank you, John, for facilitating this conversation.
So welcome, Carl, courtesy of John Staley. And this is what it means to build relationships.
Yep.
You know, I often say that people come into your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And often you don't know when you meet people what kind of relationship that's going to be. But clearly, John is here for Carl, and all of us are here in this moment because we care about the elections in November of 2026. We have got to put people in Congress who will fight for this country the way Ohioans went and fought in 1861 to preserve this union. We are right back there looking at who will be elected to Congress from states that have redistricted to give the benefit to the Republicans. And as you know, we are looking at this in our own state of Virginia, and what we're doing is a response to what other states have already done. And so all of us find ourselves contemplating what this means. What does redistricting mean for our elections in November? What does redistricting mean for who's going to sit in the seats in Congress? And Carl has a more interesting life journey than most people, because he is a small business owner. He built a business, but you'll probably not guess where. And he's built a family, and now his wife has a business here in this country. So I want to give Carl a chance to tell you a little bit about his life's journey and how his experiences are probably a lot different from almost any other member of Congress.
Thank you. It's a lot. I'm going to do it as quickly as I can. I was raised in Northeast Ohio by what could be considered the predecessor to the MAGA movement. My parents were members of a very small, very extreme evangelical community. They believed that the doomsday was coming. They taught me to be afraid. They taught me to be anxious, and they taught me with a sadness in their heart that things weren't going to get better and the rest of society wasn't necessarily worth supporting. By the time I was 18 years old, I realized that over the 7 years that I was exposed to that community, that it didn't really make anyone's life better to live with that type of hate and that type of anger. It just made people more inflamed and more calcified, but also a little bit more lost because there was no goal, there was no prestige at the end of the rainbow. And so I decided to leave that area. I studied in Montgomery, Alabama at a small Christian college. And then I got the opportunity to start traveling the world. And eventually I ended up in mainland China during one of the largest economic booms that humanity has ever experienced. And I landed with my feet on the ground in 2004. And anybody that got the opportunity to be in mainland China before the 2008 Olympics could feel that that was the way that we read about the American Industrial Revolution in history books, but you could feel it, it was tactile, you could touch it. You could see landscapes changing, you could see people elevating in upward mobility. But it also opened my eyes to, like, the more you travel, the less you know. And so you want to just continue to learn and you want to continue to be out there, because I was raised in a sheltered community that homeschooled me and taught me to be afraid. And my opportunity to see China when it was growing was one of those aspects that made me start to dream about what could America still achieve, and are we done yet as a country? And so I made the decision, with the help of my lovely wife who's here today, to start a small business and do the most American thing you could do in one of the least American places on the planet, and we opened China's second craft brewery. I taught myself how to brew beer. I taught myself how to brew beer in a language that I wasn't born speaking. And I taught myself how to acquire customers and create products that could take people that were highly cynical and highly skeptical and give them a little bit of motivation to try something new. And I brought that into this race, because when you lose voters, when you lose territory, a lot of the times it's because you forget how to build a pathway, you forget how to build a customer acquisition cycle to give people a better idea that can compete with whatever idea that's currently in the front of their brain. And
You were also an immigrant for 16 years.
So the word that people use to describe Americans or Europeans when they travel abroad is expat, but that denotes some level of luxury and separation from a community. And it usually is for State Department employees that are going for a mission, or people that are part of a multinational corporation. I moved to China, I learned the language, I fell in love, I got married, we started a business, but I also took care of my wife's grandparents with her help. And I had the honor of living with people that lived through the Cultural Revolution and the Great Leap Forward for 11 years. I've been to weddings, I've officiated weddings, which is weird. I've been to funerals, and I've celebrated the birth of my friends' children. But I also had to pay my own electrical bill and figure out how to negotiate a cell phone contract. That's not an experience of an expat, that's more the experience of an immigrant. And so bringing that back to America, but also bringing an actual immigrant with me and seeing what the immigration system really is versus what our stories about our families are. My grandparents came here with $5 in their pocket and they did it the right way. The way they did it was they arrived, they signed a book, they had a social network, they had access to line of credit, they had a place to sleep. They most likely came with a skill and a labor, but they didn't have to wait 3 years, 6 years, 12 years in a bureaucratic pile of paper to get the chance to be able to be interviewed and get the chance to take their citizenship exam. And it made me wonder if those generations of immigrants that came to America had to go through what even my wife had to go through, being married to a US citizen but still having to wait over 14 years to be able to get her citizenship in America. Would they have waited that long, or would we have lost all of those beautiful spirits, souls, minds, ideas, innovators to somewhere else that was more welcoming to them?
And so you've had an experience being an immigrant in China, and your family now is in America, and your son, how old is your son, Robbie?
14 years old.
14 years old. And so Robbie has experience on two continents.
Yes, he does.
Yes, he does. And so we have to think as a country, are we welcoming to everyone? I mean, we've always said, I say about Fairfax City, everyone here is welcome. But is this a country where everyone is welcome? And how does the next generation see the prospects of what this country has to offer? And I think this is something as a country right now that we are grappling with, what the rest of the world sees about us and what people inside this country believe about us. And I think you are uniquely positioned to bring that to Congress, because we're at a pivotal moment right now.
I think you're right. One of the things that happened over the last 6 years that really made me consider a path of civic duty was my wife and I, as I said, we started a craft brewery. It became China's largest craft brewery before COVID started. And in order to do that, in 2017, we raised private equity investment from American investors. And so we built a brewing facility that if you just picked it up and you dropped it in America, it would be the 12th largest brewery in the country for craft beer. So it was a non-trivial expression, and it was my desire to communicate that Americanism and that American dream to the growing Chinese economy. But during COVID, our investors did what private equity investors do, and they decided that COVID was not an act of God, and we performed poorly, and so they were going to take the company away from us. And so I decided to get on a plane and fly to China. And 3 days into the mandatory hotel quarantine, I was called and told that I was a week positive at the airport and that I was under arrest. And I spent 31 days in what I can only describe as a medical detention facility, learning everything I could about the writ of habeas corpus. Because there are certain things that make America truly unique. And when they're taken away from you, you realize that they might disappear forever. And you want to know what they are, and you want to fight for them, and you want to defend them. And I think en masse, a lot of Americans are experiencing that in real time when it comes to immigration and when it comes to a lot of the other pillars of who we believe we are as a people. We think that they are going to be constant, but then somebody pokes it a little bit and realizes this could tumble, or people could stop believing we need it and it might just disappear. And so through my candidacy, a lot of the things that I communicate is whenever an authoritarian mindset takes it a little too far, it presents an opportunity for someone else to come and the next generation to come with a better plan and a reset and a rebirth of what the American dream really is and what it means for my children, my 5-year-old and my 14-year-old, the woman that I love who became a US citizen 2 years ago, and everybody else that isn't as fortunate but still has a yearning to come here.